Hi, and welcome to the Mid-Level Exceptional Sport Business Podcast. My name is Joe Easy. I am your host. This is our opportunity to talk with a sport business professional, exceptional individuals who are driving our business forward. And I am so thankful to have the opportunity to talk to Philicia Douglas this afternoon. Philicia is the Senior Director of Tickets and Partnership Sales with the Birmingham Squadron. That's the G League team with the New Orleans Pelicans. Philicia is somebody I've known for several years, somebody I've stolen a lot of information from, a lot of practices from. She's a very willing sharer in terms of her wisdom and expertise. So thank you for sharing, Philicia, and thank you for sharing your time with me here this afternoon.
Thanks for having me, Joe. It's good to see you.
Absolutely. Well, let's get things started here. Really want you to be able to tell your own story. So if you could start off with just a brief background and your journey to where you are today.
All right. How brief are we going? Okay. No, so for me, I'm from Orlando originally, and growing up, played a ton of sports. I played basketball, flag football, ran track, cross country. I did all of it, right? And I figured naturally for me, I wanted to play sports. So I went to school, thought I was going to be the next Erin Andrews, did some journalism at Florida Atlantic University, ran track there for a year. And after everything, realized that I did not want to do journalism at all. And I felt like I wasted 4 years of college, right? Because actually, a lot of people don't know this, but after school, I actually moved back home and worked at Universal Studios.
Oh.
So I worked at Universal Studios taking surveys of all the guests that came through the doors, and it was horrible. And it makes sense now because, I mean, as a salesperson, it almost groomed me to go up to strangers, right? But I was going up to strangers and asking them to take these long 30-minute surveys for nothing, right? At Universal Studios. And I was like, this is horrible. I did 4 years of my life, and now I work at Universal Studios, and this is horrible. So I decided to look into sports programs because I was like, maybe journalism doesn't work, but maybe I can like switch that up and go and do the business side of things. So I found a program at Florida Atlantic University again, tried to get back home. And I applied and I got denied twice. So that was interesting. And I was like, man, I am literally going to be stuck at home for the rest of my life working at Universal Studios because I cannot get into a grad school. I didn't have good grades, Joe. I was not like the student that had like a 3.5 GPA, a 4.0 at all. Like I was like 2.9, 3.0, maybe 3.1 on a good day, right? Or a good semester. And so I was like, this is bad. But I saw a news article, and it was a news article about a new program that was starting at the University of South Florida. And I was like, whoa, like this is maybe my shot. Like I got denied. And maybe since it's so new, they need people, maybe they'll like look into me, right? Maybe this is my shot. So I actually did not call them or apply or anything. I drove there. Because I knew that so I drove to Tampa from Orlando. It was like an hour and a half drive. And I did that because I knew that if I put my application in, they would be like, absolutely not. Like, it was just not good. On paper, not the greatest, right? But the day that I drove to Tampa changed my life. Like, I sat down, I walked in that office. They didn't know I was coming. I walked into the office and I said, hey, you guys have this new program. What's this about? And I met Dr. Sutton. And he was in there and he looks at me. He's like, well, like it's a, sport management program or whatever. And I was like, I will not let you down. Like, I don't have the best scores. Like I don't have, like, I'm not the best, on paper, but as far as what I want and drive, I've got this, right? I'll do the best. And so he was like, okay, well, put in your application. And
And at
I
that
did
point,
it.
you had no idea who you were talking to, right?
I had no clue who I was talking to at all. Like, I was just like, I need to get out of my mama's house. I need to stop working at Universal Studios. Like, I can do this. So, and I was like, I know if I meet them face to face, like, it'll change their perspective of who I am than just on paper. And so I did that. I applied. I got in on a contingency that I had to do summer school because my grades weren't good. And so I did summer school and I worked my butt off because I had 4 other people with me in the same boat. And we all ended up being in the same program, and that the rest is history. From there, I worked hard. I got like a 3.5 GPA in grad school, which was amazing. I had a cohort of students that would help me, that some of them I still stay in contact with today. And Dr. Sutton connected me with the Miami Dolphins. And from there, I moved on and moved up. And right now, so I was the manager of inside sales for the Saints and Pelicans. And then they had this opportunity to come to Birmingham. And so I decided to take that because, I'm always wanting someone who wants to learn. So I moved to Birmingham and I oversee the sales and the partnership sales, new aspect, which is kind of cool here in Birmingham. So hopefully I didn't go too long,
No,
but
that's great.
yeah.
Let's talk more about your time with the Dolphins when you got started there before you moved on to New Orleans.
Yeah.
What did you do that helped set you apart from the other folks within your inside sales class in Miami that
Yeah.
helped set you up for success?
Okay. Okay. There's a little bit of a common trend here. So I did not do well when I got to Miami. Like, I struggled. I was like, first and foremost, I told Dr. Sutton I never want to do sales a day in my life, and I don't want to do it. And now I'm doing sales. I said I would try it after a while. Now I'm over here doing sales and failing. Like, everybody in my inside sales class was crushing it. And I was one of the last people to make a sale, period. Right. I had to, and I was just like, what am I doing? Like, this is so bad. And I had to practice. I was at work longer than everybody, trying to practice longer than everybody. Like, and I still couldn't get it. And I remember one of my managers coming up and saying, hey, Philicia, like, you need to do this. I was like, I don't feel comfortable doing that. Or I don't know it was something that I'd said. And she was like, maybe that's the problem. Right. And I just was like, if I really am going to do this, I need to give it 110%. And I need to, like, put my energy in this. Right. And towards the end of that inside sales class, I got promoted. Like, I turned it 360, or 180 now. And it's just like common thread. Like, it's like weird with me is like, I start off struggling. Right. And then I say, you know what, grind mode. And then from there I got promoted. And I did group sales with the Dolphins first for a year. And then after group sales, I talked to my manager or VP at the time. And I was like, I want to be an inside sales manager. I think I got what it takes. And he was like, you've literally been in sports for like a year and a half, maybe 2 years. And I'm like, I know I can do this. He's like, I don't know. And so it's like, I can prove it to you, And he was like, okay, fine, go do business development. Let me see how you sell businesses. And so it's like, fine. So he moved me over to business development. I did that for a year and a half, did a really good job in BD, what we called it there. And then I went back to him. I was like, I want to be a manager. I'm ready. Let's go. It's time. He's like, I don't know. And I was like, and then I got a call from the Alliance of American Football. I don't know if you remember that, but
Very much so.
yeah. So I got a call. They were like, hey, come be our director of sales. I was like, oh, I'm not even going to be a manager. I'm going to be a director. And so I moved to Atlanta. I didn't know a soul. I moved to Atlanta, like, did my thing. Guess what? Struggled. Like, and then the league folded. So it was all interesting. But it led me to where I am now. Had none of that happened, I wouldn't be here where I am today. So very, very interesting how the struggles turn into successes.
Mm-hmm. So what was it for you then? 'Cause I don't, you talk about giving 110%, but I don't think it was about just effort, knowing you.
Yeah.
What was it that helped you flip that switch there with Miami?
I think there's like a chip on my shoulder a little bit, Joe. I don't know if you have that, but like it's competition. When you're a competitive person and you see that like there's a wall that you keep hitting, or somebody saying that you can't do something, or like there's just something that you can't tackle, I think that actually drives me. And every time that's kind of seems to be the motivating factor,
And that's probably why your manager was telling you, I don't know if you're ready for leadership.
Probably, probably. Makes sense. Now I see it from that point of view, you know. But and he knew what motivated me. If he told me I couldn't do something, I'd be like, I'll prove it to you.
Exactly. So for people who are just getting their career started, what would your advice be to them?
I say this all the time. One of my mentors, Dr. Harold, told me it's okay not to know what you don't want, what you want to do. It's okay. Like, but what's not okay is not trying to figure it out or being negative about it. That's not okay. But it is okay not to know what you're going to do. I mean, shoot, I don't know what I'm going to do in the next 15 years or 10 years. That's really difficult. But what the best you can do is try to learn from the people around you, because they have a blueprint. It's just a matter of you looking at that and creating almost your own little version of that, you know?
I like that. I like to tell folks it's better to set goals than to make a plan, especially in this industry, because this industry moves so fast and changes so quickly. You think you know what you're going to do. If you think you know what you're going to do, things are going to change on you before you can get there.
Exactly.
So you talked about this a little bit, you know, having a different perspective, looking back on things now, and how perspective changes over time. Where you sit today, what does success look like for you?
Success looks like, for me, helping other people. Like, you know, this job is all about sales and revenue and driving, but for me internally, truly, I just love seeing my sales reps be successful. Like, as much as I'm probably annoy them, you know, listen, it's like the big sister trying to like make you better, you know, and that for me is the motivating factor. I love seeing somebody come in so green, and you and I probably share this, I don't know, but I love seeing somebody come in so green. And then towards the end, you're just like, well, dang, you're like a whole new version. You've like upped your game a little bit, you know, and it's all because I think a lot of times people just need a little bit of guidance. That's all. If you really want something, you can get it. It's just sometimes we got to stop and try to help other people get there, you know, and sometimes that might mean putting yourself outside of your comfort zone. You know, in leadership, it's almost like a thankless job sometimes. Sometimes you do things and you're like, yo, like, but the thankful part is seeing the result at the end. Then you're just like, okay, I know why I do this.
Yeah, there's always got to be a why, because there's there's a lot of things that we have to go through and fight through that you don't get the outright thanks for. But if you can take motivation from pieces like that, from seeing your team be successful or seeing other folks have success, other rewards for it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
We didn't talk about this a little bit in advance, but I'm curious. We had you in mid-COVID. You joined my inside sales team and talked a little bit. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
You got into a little bit of a back and forth with one of our reps. Do you remember that? He was challenging you on some of the things that you were talking about and the approach on some things.
Really?
His sales style, his approach was different from what you were talking about. Do you remember that at all?
I don't know. I know it was a gentleman. I see black hair.
Yeah, we don't need to shout out his name.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. But I'm curious to hear. Obviously, everybody's got a little bit of a different take on sales, different take on their approach and their personality and how their personality impacts their style.
Yeah.
How do you feel when somebody comes in, whether they're experienced or new, and their approach is different from what you're trying to teach. How do you balance out their approach with the approach that you're trying to teach in your philosophy there?
Yeah,
With the squadron?
if you would have asked me that 2 years ago, back then, maybe I would have said, listen, there's a process. We've created a blueprint for you, right? And so just follow the process. I truly believe that in sales and what we do, if we're going to go through this thinking that it needs to stay the same forever, that's a big issue, right? Like, we have to adapt. We have to change. We cannot do the same thing over and over and over again and expect that to be what it is. People are changing. There's a new generation coming up out there that are smart, they're bright, they know how to do things, they're efficient. And so listen, I would say that if somebody comes in, and now, if you're brand new to it, like, you got to listen to what I'm trying to say first, right? But after a while, if you start developing your own thing and you're like, Philicia, that just doesn't work for me. For me, if you can show me results, I'm going to leave you alone.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's what it is. Now, I don't know if I would have you coaching everybody else,
Right.
but at the end of the day, we're here to drive results. And if you can figure a way to drive results on your own, the way you do it, kudos to you. Go ahead.
It's driving results, and it's also making sure that you've got a logic behind your process. A
Yeah,
lot of times people
absolutely.
say, well, this works for me because I made one sale out of 100 attempts this way. And they'll focus
Right.
on that one success. But being able to show, if you can outline the either the business logic or the process logic behind this approach,
Yeah.
we can talk about it.
Yeah. I mean, but sometimes, well, that's an issue too, right? It's like if somebody has this process, like you said, and that they just been doing it and it's just been working.
Mm-hmm.
Like, some people, a lot of salespeople do that. They just do this thing and they don't understand how it works. That's just how it is. That's who they are as a person. They're just
Mm-hmm.
able to do that. And that's fine for me personally. I just wouldn't have you coaching anybody unless you can coach us on how you're getting to that result. If you can't coach that, then stay to yourself, figure that out. I'll leave you alone as long as it's successful.
Yeah. So talking about coaching and development and growth, I when the G League came out, and obviously that's where you are as the G League, when
Yeah.
it first came up, I think the big initiative was it's a great opportunity, great place for the NBA teams to help develop young players, players who are coming out of high school, don't want to go to college, and just develop young talent. How have we done as a league, and how can we improve from your perspective to develop front office and business talent similar to what we're doing on the court?
That is, Joe, that is a very big question. I feel like that's a whole discussion in itself, but I do think that leadership starts from the top. It does, it's like, you got to find leaders that are vested in development and not just results all the time, that understand that development leads to results, but there takes time. And you've got, I think there's a gap there. There definitely is a gap there. We have leaders out there who are so driven in sales, results, numbers, and it's like, but long-term wise, how does that affect our entire industry? I think it does hurt, because we've got to find ways to how I was just trying to adapt, right? And part of that adapting is we got students coming out of college that want to learn. It's not so much about, they just want to learn and they want to rise quickly, right? And so if we're going to do the same things over and over, we're going to lose them, because they'll just go over the tech industry where they can learn, and even sit on their couch while doing it, watching TV, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost like that. The older generation needs to teach the younger generation, but they also need to be open-minded to what the younger generation has to bring. And I think there's a little bit of a gap there that we've got to work on, because we're doing the same thing over and over and over again. And I don't mean to talk bad, but that's how we're going to fix, the development piece of our industry.
Mm-hmm. I think one thing that I really love about, I'm going to include myself in the not the younger generation, but the millennial, because I'm
Yeah.
technically a millennial, right? So
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
a desire and a hunger for feedback, I think
Yeah.
is so important. And with that, it doesn't just come from feedback from leadership. I want feedback from my team. I want feedback from
Mhm.
people who I manage and who I lead.
Mhm.
And you're the same way, right? You want to know how you can get better, and your VP, your leadership can only tell you so much about how you can be a better leader or a coach.
Mhm.
A lot of that's going to come from the people that you're leading and coaching.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's always there. That's where those one-on-ones come in, right? Like sometimes one-on-ones don't always have to be about sales. Sometimes it could be like, hey, what can I be doing better
Mm-hmm.
to help you in your development? Or I'll ask my reps sometimes, are you happy? Like,
Mm-hmm.
because they need to know that I care about that stuff, or else they're not going to give me feedback about me. They're just going to let me do my thing. If we don't get personal with them sometimes, and they're just not going to help us out, they'll just keep it in.
Yeah. And then that leads to them struggling, not hitting numbers,
Yeah.
or department or organization not hitting numbers. And so, like, no matter how you want to approach it, like, that has an impact.
Yeah, it does. It does.
So let's talk about that a little bit more. I mean, when we were talking about trying to get you scheduled here, it was earlier in the season. And if you can refresh my memory and update our
Mhm.
listeners here on the success that your team had on a revenue side this year and in your first year or so there at Birmingham, with a super new team,
Mhm.
a lot of new sellers. Update us on what kind of success you had there, and
Yeah.
also how you built a team to have so much success so quickly mid COVID.
Hmm. Yes. So I think hiring good people is really important. Hiring a diverse set of people is really important. Because some of the people that I have on my team, they're creative, but they can do a lot of different things at the same time, right? And they want to help. Like they have this spirit of, let me help. What can I do to help? How can I help? And so I think that was important. I remember, I don't know who told me, unfortunately, but somebody said the first thing you need to do as you are starting the Birmingham Squadron in Birmingham is hire good people. And I think that's where the key is finding people who have a vested interest in seeing Birmingham succeed, hiring people who love sports, but understand that you cannot be a fan working in sports. You have to be a business person wanting to have a career in sports. So that was kind of um, that was the basis of trying to hire them, and then open-minded and coaching. But they did challenge me a lot this year too, which I also found when I allow them to challenge me, which was a struggle because I'm not used to that. Letting reps challenge me, it's like, you heard what I said, do it or not. But when they challenged me, I found that it also grew me as well. Not that I wanted to hear it, but it grew me and it kind of made me question some of the philosophies that I have. I was like, wait, why do I do it that way? I don't know. That's how I learned it 5 years ago. The whole like sales calls versus email thing trips me up, man. Like it is that was a huge thing. It's like, Philicia, people don't answer the phone anymore. Like, but no, you need to make 100 calls a day. But like, I can send emails and text messages, and it's like, nope, call them. But it's like, why do I do it that way? So, anyways, that's just one thought. We had to adjust and form to each other. There was times that they were super frustrated with me and I was super frustrated with them, but it all worked together because we're all growing together. It's a startup. It was a startup, right? And so we're throwing all these ideas at each other, but we're also understanding that we're coming together for one common goal, and that's to be successful in the G League.
And when you came to the end of the season, were you happy with where you landed?
Where yes. We weren't number one, but number three in sales for the first year ever in a city with we didn't even have a name. We didn't even have an arena. Like, I think that is a phenomenal success. And I think the team did an awesome job. And we have a lot to be proud of, because I don't know how we did that last year with everything going on with COVID. And I mean, half the office had COVID at one point. It was just, but I was happy and I'm proud of them. Number one, I'm proud of them. And then number two, yes, I'm happy with where we went. I want to do better next year though.
Don't we all?
Yeah.
All right, one last question for you, Philicia. We're going to give you a huge promotion. You're going to move up to president of the sport industry, not just the G League, not just Saints and Pelicans and Squadron, but the entire industry. And along with that promotion, you get a magic wand to make any change in our industry that you want. And it's not something that you have to build over time. You wave your magic wand and it happens overnight. What change are you making?
Wow. More diverse in women in sports. That would have to be, I know that sounds so cliche. I feel like that's super cliche, but we need it.
I don't think it's cliche. I do find it interesting because a lot of folks have gone there with this question, and that's been probably the most common answer that I've gotten so far. Which,
of course, I give you the common answer.
What's that?
Of course, I give you the common answer.
No. I think it's good because one, it shows that a lot of people are thinking that way, talking about that.
Yeah.
And I guess my follow-up question for you, knowing that people are thinking about that, if we went back and had this conversation 5 years ago, would people still be, now you might have given me that answer 5 years ago, but would as many people be giving me that same answer? Or is this more about people being more comfortable talking about that on a broader space?
So I'm going to answer your follow-up, but I do have a clarifying question to that. And that, are you getting that response from all, or is it women that you're getting that response from, or are you getting that response from men as well?
It's been both.
Okay. Well, although
some folks, let me clarify my answer. Some folks will speak to it as DEI, diversity, representation, equal voices on a broader scale. Some of the women that I've talked to who are bringing up DEI in their answer are being specific to women and DEI in the industry.
Interesting. So, it's rare. Not rare. That's not true. We're getting better, but it's not.
It's more rare than it should be. How's that?
Correct. I mean, to be in a room with somebody who's like me, I mean, I don't know if counterparts realize it, but it is something I realize when I walk in the room, and I'm sure my other counterparts around the world realize that too. I mean, it would be nice. It would be nice for that to happen a little bit more often, because there is a level of, when you comfortability in what you're doing and who you are, when you do have your counterpart there and that, okay, you can breathe a little bit, but.
If I can ask another follow-up here to that,
sure.
Philicia, is it when you say counterpart, do you specifically mean Black woman? Do you mean woman?
Yeah, I
Black
specifically
person or person of color?
I think it's Black women, person of color. When we're in the same room together, we typically are like, "Whoa, like this is cool." Okay. That's not often though.
Mhm.
That's at maybe like a conference or something where all of the nations coming together in one place
The
at
UN.
one time in the year. Okay. That otherwise that's not happening. So that's what I mean. I think it's worth saying. I think it's worth saying that it does make a difference in how we feel, how we interact, what we're doing, you know.
Absolutely. I think that makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
I just think it requires an intentionality
Yeah,
um,
it does.
at all levels. And I think it's probably different based on market, right? You know,
Sure. Of course.
if I'm sitting here in Portland, Oregon, and being able to um, make sure that I'm being intentional about how I build my staff
Yeah.
is going to be different than
Yeah.
sitting in, I'll use you as an example, Birmingham, Alabama, right?
Right. For sure. But if I can ask you a question, do you
Mhm.
feel like we're being intentional about that?
I
Or
think
is that a
some people
fake?
are. I think some people
Okay.
are. Some people try to. I think the challenge that you run into, and that a lot of people use as an excuse to avoid that, is that if you're intentional, it takes time and it takes
Right.
energy. And we in our industry like to go very fast because we're always
We
thinking
do.
about next season, the next campaign, the next game.
Hmm.
And we don't we look at slowing down as a luxury,
Yeah.
right? Um, and so that's the battle that gets fought internally, whether it's internally to organizations, to departments, or just
Hmm.
inside of a person, that push pull that you have to fight.
That's fair. That's fair. That's fair. I've heard that before. But that means that you should start way, way ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Like get started,
Build the bench.
partner up with your local HBCU. I mean, they're
We don't have an
always looking.
HBCU in Portland, but
Oh gosh.
I
Well,
did start reaching out again to that point with when COVID hit. I
yeah.
realized just how reliant I was on events like Mount Union and Robert
Mm,
Morris and
mhm.
NSN and things like that for a lot of my relationship building and networking and being proactive. So I said, okay, well, let's start building relationships with schools,
Mhm.
and started off by reaching out to HBCUs on the East Coast because, again,
Yeah.
I want to be intentional and I want to draw people from everywhere
Mhm.
and I want to bring multiple perspectives and multiple voices.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, like, they are some bright students. Like, they're looking for opportunities. Go to the Career Development Center. They'll have you come table at the school for free. They want their students to have those exposures. I just don't think they know.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think, now we're in a virtual world. You can partner with a school in Morehouse
Mm-hmm.
in Atlanta from Portland, and tell them that there's a job. Now, will somebody travel from Atlanta to Portland? I don't know, but that's not the point.
Right.
The point is that you're being intentional and giving them the information. What they do with that information, if you touch one or two students,
Mm-hmm.
that makes a difference.
And to that point, I love some of the things the NBA is doing, our league is doing.
Oh
Future
yeah.
Sales Stars that we were
Oh
both a part
yeah.
of last year,
Huge.
the HBCU Fellowship that's
Amazing.
launching here this summer. So just
Hmm.
again, speaking about being intentional. None of these programs were easy to set up. None of these programs have been
Hmm.
easy to execute. And so the folks behind them, the folks at the league office, are putting a lot of energy into
Yep.
this. So nothing happens, of course,
They,
unfortunately, with the wave of a magic wand. But
yeah.
with the people that we have driving this across our league and our industry,
Yeah.
we'll get to a place.
They hit the nail on the head.
Mm-hmm.
Those programs have done wonders, and I love, that's why I love working in the NBA. It's so they are intentional and they're open-minded. I love it. I
Mm-hmm.
just love it. So
Well, I have loved this conversation. Felicia, thank you again
same.
so much for your time. It is always fantastic to be able to catch up and connect with you. I am hopeful that we'll get a chance to do so in person again in the near future.
Be great.
So thank you for sharing your wisdom with me and with the audience here today. To anyone listening, thank you for spending your time with us. Please like, rate, review, subscribe, share this with your network, regardless of where you're listening and where you're following us on. And if you know anybody, if you're connected with anybody within your network who's exceptional like Philicia, please drive them my way. Would love to have them on a future episode of Mid-Level Exceptional.
Thank you, Joe.